What's going on, guys? Matty Russell here. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I built this DIY quail egg incubator for 150 bucks. Let's get stuck into the video. Now guys, the first thing I did was the general assembly of the box of the incubator itself. And in order to do that, I took a bit of MDF, measured it to size, and cut it on the table saw. I then took a bit of 4x2, ripped it straight down the guts, measured them to size, and cut them on the table saw also. I then had 4 pieces of 4x2 which had been ripped and cut to size on the table saw, and used those in order to secure the sides, the roof, and the bottom of the incubator in together. I fixed them into position with screws, and Bob's your uncle. Now once the roof had been fixed into place with some screws, I measured out 2 locations and used a 50mm hole saw in order to cut holes in the top of the incubator. These holes would then be used in order to install the lights into the incubator itself. I then took the box assembly of the incubator and gave it a spray of black paint. Now the lights which I decided to use were just typical floodlights that I picked up from the local hardware store. Once the lights had been fixed into position, I then began the assembly of the forced air fan unit. In order to make the forced air fan unit, I took a bit of MDF, drilled some pilot holes, and cut out the internal section with a jigsaw. I then took the fan and attached it using some screws. I then gave it a coat of black paint. I flipped it over and attached the grate also using some more screws. Now this fan is actually a computer fan, which I obviously took out of a computer, cut the wire, then took a USB power cord, cut that, and wired the two together, fixing it with some duct tape. Now I've decided not to go into detail as to how I wired those 2 bits of wire together, well, quite frankly, because I don't want to be responsible for someone getting electrocuted. I then completed the rest of the assembly of the forced air fan unit and secured it into the incubator using screws from the outside. I then took a bit of this hardware mesh, again which I picked up from the local hardware store, cut it to the inside dimensions of the incubator, and elevated it off the bottom using 4 blocks of timber. Once the lights and the fans and the mesh had been installed in the incubator, I then decided to make the door for the incubator, and I made it out of a bit of perspex. Now as you can see here, guys, I decided to put a viewing window in the door so that we can see what's going on throughout the incubation process without having to open up the incubator and lose all of the humidity and temperature. That way we can see what's going on throughout lockdown to see whether or not chicks have begun to pip and hatch inside the incubator. Now in order to build the door, I took a bit of perspex, cut out the outside of the protective layer, sprayed it black, and then peeled back the inside of the protective layer, leaving a clear viewing window for observation. I then fixed the door to the incubator using these hinges, which I screwed into position with some screws. Once the door had been installed, it was time to organize the cables from the lights and the fan coming out the top of the incubator. It was then time to build a box out of MDF in order to hide the cables, which was really just done for aesthetics. After I built the sides and the roof out of MDF and screwed them together with screws, I fixed them onto the top of the incubator using brackets. Now guys, this unit here is a thermostat which I picked up on eBay for about 30 bucks. And below it there is a thermometer which I picked up on eBay for about $15. Now the lights inside the unit here is what actually heats up the incubator, and these lights are attached to the thermostat. You enter in your desired temperature into the thermostat, the lights switch on inside the unit and bring the heat up to the desired temperature, which is regulated by these probes down here. Once the desired temperature is met, the lights then switch off. When the temperature drops inside the unit, the lights switch back on in order to heat it back up again. And this is done on a continual cycle in order to maintain the appropriate temperature to ensure that the chicks form healthily inside the egg and we get a highest percentage of hatch rate as possible. And there you have it, guys. That's how I build a DIY quail egg incubator. If you haven't already, why don't you give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification so that you can be notified when the next video goes live, and we will catch you in the next one.